Hey there, and welcome. From the coffee you grab in the morning to the very device you're watching this on right now, globalization is, well, it's all around us. It shapes our daily lives. But have you ever really stopped to wonder what economic engines are actually making it all happen? Let's dive in.
I mean, think about it for a second. That phone in your pocket or on your desk, its journey involved dozens of countries before it ever got to you. That's not some random accident. It's the very heart of globalization. And by the end of this, you're going to know exactly why that is.
But, before we can really understand the story of your phone, we need to zoom out. We've got to start with the big picture to really get a handle on what we even mean when we say globalization. At its core, it's really this simple. It's this massive, growing web of connections between the economies of different countries. And that web is just getting tighter and more complex all the time. It's about trade, sure, but it's also about technology, money, and even people moving around the globe. Now, this didn't just happen on its own. It's been absolutely supercharged by some really powerful forces. Think about it. It's cheaper than ever to ship stuff across the ocean, and the internet lets us communicate and move money instantly. All of this makes it way easier for companies to sell to people in other countries, and just as important, it helps new ideas and new technologies spread like wildfire. Okay, so that's the what and the how. But what about the why? Why do countries even bother trading with each other in the first place? Let's zoom in a little bit, down to the country level, and figure that out. Well, the classic answer to that question goes way, way back to 1817 and an economist named David Ricardo. He basically argued that if countries just focus on doing what they do best, if they specialize and then trade with each other, everybody wins. It is all about efficiency. Now, check out Ricardo's classic example here, because this is where it gets really cool. If you look at the numbers, Portugal is just better at making everything. It takes them fewer hours to make both cloth and wine. So why should they even bother trading with the UK? This is where the magic really happens. It all comes down to these two key ideas. Portugal has what we call absolute advantage. They're just flat out better at making both products. But, and this is the crucial part, the UK has a comparative advantage in making cloth. So what does that mean? It's all about something called opportunity cost. See, even though Portugal is good at making cloth, they are even better at making wine. So for them to make a unit of cloth, they have to give up making a lot of really valuable wine. It's actually more efficient for the UK to just focus on the cloth, for Portugal to focus on the wine, and then for them to trade. That way, both countries end up with more cloth and more wine than they could have made on their own. It's a win-win. Okay, so specialization makes a ton of sense. But what happens when you throw modern technology and this constant pressure to innovate into the mix? Well, that changes the game completely. So fast forward to 1979. The economist Paul Krugman came up with a model that really helps us understand this. He kind of divided the world into two big regions: the innovative North, which is always creating new stuff, and the imitative South, which learns how to produce those new things over time. And in this model, it's that temporary technology gap that really drives trade. And this really shows you the whole cycle. The North innovates some cool new gadget, and for a little while, they're the only ones who can make it, so they export it everywhere. But eventually, that technology gets transferred, and the South learns how to make it too. And at that point, the North's advantage is gone. So, to keep its economy humming, the North has to constantly innovate. It has to invent the next big thing. It's this perpetual high-stakes race. So, we've seen the big picture, we've looked at the country level. Now, let's do our final zoom in, right down to the level of individual companies. What happens to them when a country throws open its doors to global trade? And here's the tough reality. Opening up to trade is not good for everybody. Inside any industry, you're going to have very clear winners and very clear losers. And the single biggest thing that decides which camp you're in, it's productivity. This model from Mark Melitz back in 2003 shows us exactly how this sorting process works. When markets open up, the most productive, most efficient companies, that green bar, they seize this incredible opportunity. They start exporting, they get bigger, they grow massively. But the least productive firms, that red bar, they suddenly face this intense new competition that they just can't handle, and they're forced to shrink or even shut down completely. So here's the really crucial point. While it's incredibly painful for some of those companies, this whole sorting process actually makes the entire industry healthier. The less efficient firms get weeded out and the superstars take over. This actually raises the average productivity of the whole sector, making the entire economy more competitive on the world stage, and ultimately, that creates what economists call a welfare gain for everybody. Okay, so let's zoom back out one last time. How do all of these different pieces, specialization, innovation, and this fierce competition between firms, how do they all fit together to drive the one thing everyone wants, economic growth? Well, when you put it all together, a pretty clear picture starts to emerge. Bigger, more connected markets, they just tend to grow faster. And why is that? Well, because trade helps new ideas and new technologies spread much more quickly. Economists call this knowledge spillovers. An innovation in one country can spark another one halfway around the world. And we see this in the data. Countries that export a wide variety of different goods tend to have much stronger growth. It's a really powerful, positive feedback loop. And, the logical conclusion from all of this is that policies that get in the way of trade, things like tariffs and quotas, they can have the exact opposite effect. They break up markets, they slow down the spread of knowledge, and they can really act as a brake on a country's economic growth. Which, of course, brings us to our final big question. Based on everything we've just seen about specialization, innovation, and productivity, what do you think is the likely outcome of turning inward in a world that's already so deeply connected? Is that a path to growth or a recipe for stagnation? Definitely something to think about. This entire explainer and really our modern understanding of globalization is built on the foundational work of these brilliant economic thinkers. Their theories give us the tools to even begin to analyze the incredibly complex forces that connect our world today. Thanks so much for watching.